over the past weekend, I had a bunch of DMs sent through. I told everybody to send any personal clothing brand questions that they had as far as like towards me being in the game for 8 years. And I got several questions. I mean, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to sales, when it comes to production, when it comes to design and more. So what I did was I just condensed down all of like the top quality questions so then I can give you the most valuable answers from a person that's actually had skin in the game and that's been doing this for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. So let's get right into it. But before I answer all the questions, first and foremost, what I want to do is like just give you the lessons that are leading up to the questions that other people had for me. So the biggest key takeaways that I have gotten being a brand owner comes down to 3 things. So the first one is without guidance, you will perish. The second is without a culture, you won't last. The third is everyone is thinking in days, not decades. So the market is wide open. And the fourth is create a vision so good that everyone wants to be a part of it. So when I break down that first one, with no guidance you will perish, you're probably wondering, well, what do I mean? And basically what I mean is that a lot of people come into this and they're trying to shoot a basketball like Stephen Curry, but they never even shot a basketball before. They never even made an actual 3-pointer before, but yet they want to come in and do Euro steps like Dwayne Wade and shoot like Stephen Curry and win championships like Michael Jordan. When that's the furthest thing from the truth, right? It's like everything in life when it comes to your grammar, even as a child, right? The ABCs, and then you're learning words, and then you're learning sentences, and then it keeps going on and on. So it's the same even coming into business just in general. But a lot of people look at the clothing brand stuff and they just think that it's so sweet. And then they wonder why they keep failing year after year after year because they don't want to sit there and build up those skills over time. So instead, what a lot of people do is that they look at everything from a 90-day window. How can I get to $10,000 a month in 90 days and all this other stuff? And then they end up going nowhere because their life is nothing but an empty chase with this clothing brand rather than actually just sitting back, stacking up their skills over time, whether that's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. And then next thing you know, when they look up, they done built something so special and their results is nothing but a byproduct of them and the skills that they built over that time and over those years. So the second takeaway is without a culture, you won't last. Now, when I say a culture, that means really like a community. When you look at the best brands in the world, whether if it's Stutzy or if it's Bape or it's Supreme or it's Palace, if it's FTP, if it's Menace, if it's Hypeland, if it's me, my brand, even on a micro scale, you know, it's like all of us have a different community. All of us are speaking a different creed. All of us are speaking a different message. And not only that, it's like all of us have built a strong community. You don't need to be the biggest brand in the world to build a community. It's even better if you have a micro niche, right? And you just a dominant person of that niche. And then everybody's running to you. And then you made this world that never existed until a person like you created it. And once you have done that, that's going to make things not just a whole lot easier with your marketing and your sales efforts, but also even on the longevity side of things, right? Because everybody wants to be a part of something. When you look at politics, when you look at religions, when you look at all these marches that we have going on in the world, from the LGB to the Black Lives Matter, so all these different things, right? To the right, to the left, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, pro-Biden, like everybody's looking for a community to be a part of. So when you build out a culture with your brand and you make something so strong and you created a world that has never existed, I promise you, you will see longevity with that brand, no matter how small or how big you actually become. Lesson number 3, everyone is thinking in days, not decades, so the marketplace is wide open. So when people come to me all the time and they ask me, man, bro, the market, there's so many brands out right now. There's so many clothing brands. There's a new clothing brand every single day. What am I supposed to do? Like, should I compete with them? Should I do this? Should I do that? And it's like, bro, just breathe, relax, and stay focused. The biggest reality is, and the most harshest reality for many brand owners out there, that majority of the brands that you guys are seeing right now, whether if it's on TikTok, if it's on Facebook, Instagram, wherever it may be, 99.9% of these brands that you're seeing aren't even going to be around in the next 12 to 48 months. Everybody has short-term thinking. So when you're looking at all of these brands out there, how many of them is actually really building a culture? How many of them is actually really building something that has never existed? How many people are actually building something that is super unique and that's new and they can become an authority in the marketplace, right? It's slim to none. So a lot of people out there, they're just throwing spaghetti on the wall. They're hoping that something sticks and then they just want to take those funds and go pay their bills and just live up this little short-term lifestyle, traveling and things like that. But to build something on the long term, it's not coming, I promise you, in 90 days. And a lot of people are thinking from the 90-day window. So if you come into this game and start thinking 5 years out, 10 years out, and you treat year 10 like you would treat day 1 or week 1 with your clothing brand, right then and there, you're ahead of 99% of everybody that's in the marketplace. So my last takeaway takeaway from being a clothing brand owner the past 8 years is that you want to have a vision that is so good that everybody wants to be a part of it in some type of shape or form. And what I mean by that is a lot of people, they don't really have a vision with their brand. A lot of people, they're just making a commodity. And you know, it might be a dope idea, but they trying to just get money off of it. They're not really trying to create a world that has never existed. They're not trying to really put contribution into mankind and make something that was so beautiful and so unique that it would stand the test of time. A lot of people are doing things for the short-term game. And I just feel like if you just have a strong vision, you will attract the right players, you will attract the right business partners, you will attract the right community, the right customers and everything. Because like I said, everybody wants to be a part of something. But if you have a vision and if you're not really speaking it, right? And if you're just showing through action and through your demonstration, trust me, you don't have to worry right now about finding the best production manager or finding the best designer or the best warehouse operationals manager. Those people will come, because I promise you this, if you just divorce from the result and just embrace the craft and get so good at the craft and you have a vision for where you're trying to take the craft, people will find you. It's almost like with the whole Eminem and Dr. Dre thing back in the day, right? Like Eminem gives up rap. He was like, this shit isn't going to work for me. But he put in 10, 15 years in the rap, and then he gives up at like 26, 27. He goes to the Rap Olympics in LA. He loses in the Rap Olympics, but it just has, I think the dude's name was like Dean Wittenhauer or something like that. And he was Jimmy Iovine's assistant. So he was like, yo, give me a CD. I'm gonna give it to Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy Iovine heard it. His head exploded, gave it to Dr. Dre, and they was all around LA and hunted down Eminem within like the 3 days he was being out there, and his whole life changed. So it doesn't really matter like right now where you standing at, because I promise you, if you just embrace the craft and get so good at it that the right people will find you. I promise you, just get good enough and so good enough that the customers find you, the community that you want, they find you, the right people that's behind your brand, that's helping you build out your brand, that they will find you. But the only way that we can do that is getting so good at the craft, and we have a vision on where we want to take the craft. So my whole thing is, let's hone down on that. Let's get so great at that. So then next thing you know, when we look up, and it might be 3, 5, 10, 15 years, who knows? But now your whole entire life has changed just off the simple fact that you divorced from the result, you embraced the craft, and you had a vision on where to put the craft, and everything that you ever wanted attracted to you, because you're nothing but a byproduct of the craft, if that makes sense. So over the weekend, I put out on my IG story, yo, send me a bunch of personal questions, business, clothing brand questions that you guys had that I will answer on YouTube. And so many of you guys just bombarded my DM. And that's kind of a good thing, you know, because a lot of people are curious. They got this sincerity pursuit that they're trying to walk. And now we're about to get into, you know, the clothing brand advice questions that I thought was the best, and lessons that you can take from as well to shift your perspective as a clothing brand owner. So let's get into it. So the first question is, what would you tell your younger self that's getting into this game? And the first thing that I would honestly tell myself is let go of the ego, let your clothing brand grow the way that you want it to grow, because a lot of people come into this, you know, and we're very controlling, narcissistic people, especially if you're a creative person, right? Because it's your shirt and it's your design and you want it to go this actual way, but it's almost like a child, right? It's almost like a plant. Like we just water it every day and it might grow this way, or it might go straight up, or it might go this way, but whatever way it grows, it's growing in its own unique way. And we kind of have to like divorce from that and just let it be. When I was younger, when I came into this, I was so controlling on how I wanted things to go, but everybody's tree doesn't grow the same. I wanted my brand to kind of go like this brand, and I wanted it to kind of go like that brand. But at the same time, not every brand is going to grow the same. So with that being said, that's exactly what I would tell my younger self. It's kind of like what I just said in one of the lessons, as far as like, yo, just divorce from the result and just embrace the craft. And even when it comes into like embracing the craft, it's like you have to let go on how this brand is going to grow, right? Because it's nothing but an exploration. You know what I mean? It's almost like everybody's path is not the same. My path ain't the same as Nipsey Hussle's. My path ain't the same as a Jordan Bentley. We all have different unique stories that would work for their brand might not work for mine. What work for mine might not work for theirs. But it's only when you get out there to the battlefield and then you actually like testing to see what works for you and your brand, and then that's what you double down on. And then even then, it's like we divorcing from the sales. We divorcing on people gotta just buy this one design or this one shirt that I made. We just letting everything go, right? And it's almost like a point of like surrender, especially being a man. It's like you just gotta surrender to all of it and just let it be and let it grow as it is. So with that being said, that's exactly what I would tell my younger self, is just stop being so controlling, let go, let this brand breathe, let this brand grow in its own way, and you just put in the inputs every single day, and trust me, over time, you're gonna see the outputs that you wanted. So question number 2, what is the best possible advice for someone who is going to go through this? The best advice that I can give to anybody that's about to go through this is that you need to sit down. You need to look at your strengths and weaknesses. Not only that, is that a lot of people, when they come into this, kind of like I said on my lessons, they come in with no guidance, and everybody sees, all the orders, right? Everybody sees the Shopify lit, right? The Shopify is glitching of just orders, and that's what everybody wants, and that's okay. But at the same time, if you don't have any skill sets, if you don't know how to write the ABCs, how are we ever going to get to a sentence, right? How are you going to shoot like Stephen Curry when you never even picked up a ball? And I think a lot of people, they try to skip steps and then they get frustrated and angry, wondering why their orders aren't looking like the person to the left of them, or why their brand isn't growing like the person to the right of them. Now, I'm not saying to compare your brand, right? But at the same time, it's like you have to put in maximum inputs to even get a lot of output, or even a little bit of an output. It's like the bodybuilder, he doesn't go to the gym one time just to get an ego lift, right? He was going for several years. Those are several reps. Those are hundreds and thousands of reps. So what makes you think his result should be yours in the first 90 days? It's delusional thinking. Unfortunately, the clothing brand is such an easy barrier to entry to get into. A lot of people thinking that they don't need guidance and they don't need help and they can do it all on their own. But then when they get in, they actually see that this shit is not for the weak, So the best advice that I would give to anybody is that you need to go find somebody that can help you out. I have a free Discord group in the link below. Not only that, we also have a free workshop on how I went 0 to 100K and the 3 lessons that you can take from there with my clothing brand back in the day, 2014, 2015, how I went from the trunk of my car to getting my first office within the first 17 months running my clothing brand. And I think that can help you out as well and give you a perspective. And y'all got me right here giving y'all this game and giving y'all this experience and giving y'all this ism 100% for free, so it can save you years of not wasting your time. But that's exactly what I would tell somebody that's about to go through this. Put your ego down. You don't know what you're really doing, even though that you say that you do, just because you think that you watch a few YouTube videos on ads or whatever it may be, or going to Alibaba trying to find manufacturers and stuff like that. At the end of the day, you're an amateur. You don't know what you're doing. So get behind somebody that actually went through it, so then they can save you a whole lot of stress, time, money, headache, agony, defeat. You know what I'm saying? So that would be my best advice. So question number 3, if you had to look back, what wouldn't you have done? So when I reflect back on my journey, a lot of things I did wrong, but I wouldn't regret anything. But if I knew what I knew back then, if I had the paradigm that I have right now back then, what I would have done differently is really just letting go, surrendering, and stop caring about what people think. I think that handicaps us a lot, even at all levels. I can only imagine like when you get to the top of the hierarchy, right? And when you're at the top of it, industry or at the top of the field, on like how people gonna look at you and off of certain decisions that you make and certain choices. But with me, that handicapped me a lot. You know what I mean? Like I turned down Zoomies back in the day when they were throwing me a crazy bag, all because I cared about how people would look at me. I didn't do this certain move because I cared about how my audience would feel, and that did nothing but handicap me and my growth. So what wouldn't I have done? Well, one of the things is I would have went into Zoomies. I would have put a separate line in there just for Zoomies only. So I would have been getting literally over $250,000 a year from just wholesale. And you got to ponder on that. That's like orders that I don't have to hustle and I don't have to push and I don't got to restart every single month from 0 to 80,000 or whatever the numbers may be. Another thing that I would have done differently was definitely stop giving a fuck about what everybody thought. And I would have just did all the things that was up here that I knew that could have changed the game. And I was just sitting there on the edge when I needed somebody to just push me off the cliff. And looking back, I would have for sure just jumped off the cliff and did everything kind of like my way. Even though I've done everything my way to get to this point, but I would have really like jumped off the cliff and like just had been blind to all the chaos and everybody's opinions, from friends, family, to my customers, to everybody online and on the internet, because that gets to you, you know what I'm saying? Because you create this brand, you took this concept to reality. So every move is like, oh, well, I don't want to piss them off by releasing this shirt, or I don't want to do this because I don't want to lose the customers I got, or I don't want to do this. And it's like, once you get up in that space, it's like you're living in a place of fear, and the man that's living in a place of fear, he's not free. So what I would have done is just been completely free. And if I would have made mistakes, obviously, because I'm not perfect, and if it would have been the wrong move, I could at least live with that and been like, well, at least I tried it. But looking back now, there's certain things that I did not try simply off the matter of the fact that I cared about what other people thought. So the last question that I took on was, how do you pick a name for your clothing brand? And the best way to pick a name for your clothing brand, obviously there's all these different tactics and stuff like that. I feel like once you start trying to seek and search, just in life in general, without this picking a name stuff, you don't really find no answers, right? If you go out there seeking a relationship, or you're searching, or you on Bumble and Hinge, and you go into the club and you just going out there with the intention to find, it almost like resists more and more away from you. You know what I'm saying? Like, the name has to come at a very authentic time, and that's not up to me. That's not even up to you. That's really up to like the man above. My whole thing is, you know, you can write down like a bunch of names. Don't go look to see if somebody already took it or something like that. My whole thing was, how can I pick a name that's 100% a reflection of me? It's short and it will stick in somebody's head. You know what I mean? Like, when you got Apple, you don't even think about the fruit before you think about the actual technology. My whole thing was, when I look at like all the legendary streetwear brands that have stood the test of time, the names are really simple, but they're just engraved in everybody's subconscious. So when I came up with Lord Knows, like, it just happened just magically. You know what I mean? Because I wrote down all types of names. Oh, I'm gonna name it this, I'm gonna name it this, that, and the third. But when I just reflected on my life and my upbringing and me and my friends, you know, and when I was just reflecting back on just like our whole upbringing and, you know, the good from the bad and the sinner to the saint, like, it just came out as like Lord Knows. But before it became Lord Knows, at first, like for like the first like half a year of running the brand, it was just called Lord Clothing Brand. And then one night we was on the block, and Drew, we was all just sitting there drinking in front of my cousin's sticker shop, and he was like, man, he was like, something's missing. It's like the Lord Clothing Brand, it's not fulfilled. And I was like, what else can we call it? And then he was like, Lord Knows. And I ran down the street. I was like hella drunk, I'm not gonna even lie. And I ran down the street. I was like, like, that's it. You know, I was like, this is perfect. Right when he said that, it's like, that's when everything just started unraveling. Now, I'm not saying that's gonna happen to you. I don't know. But all I did at first was I did write down a whole bunch of names, you know, but I didn't really go out there like trying to push and like seek for a name and search for a name. I just wrote down a whole bunch of names, and then I was like, boom, like, I'm gonna do the Lord Clothing Brand. And then from there, you know, we was the Lord Clothing Brand. I had my first little batch of t-shirts. And then from there, that's when Drew like completed it and was like, yo, call it Lord Knows, because he was like, Lord Clothing Brand, it's something missing. And then right when he did that, that's when it all went off to the races, and the rest was history. But for you, if I was you, I'll do the same thing. Just write down like 50 to 100 names, something that's 100% you, something that's a reflection of who you are. Because then once you make the brand and you put out the brand identity and you make everything cohesive and you got the designs and the models and everybody else that's in your clothes, it's 100% authentic. And that's what it's all about, lasting with a brand. So with that being said, Machiavelli is out. Peace.